In her 20s, her mother had a devastating stroke, and that is the first time she paused to look at her own life. Today's guest is Simone Heng.
I'm the author of Let's Talk About Loneliness. I travel the world speaking around the topic of human connection, loneliness obviously being the absence of connection.
In this conversation, she talks about what it takes to truly stop running from yourself, why most of us do it only when we are forced to, and how some of the most painful moments in our lives can also be the most clarifying. Welcome to Eudaimonia. You started off in broadcasting, in media, and then now you've made this arc of talking about human connection. So maybe if you could talk to us about what made you go through that journey.
So I started out as a broadcaster many, many years ago, like we're talking the 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
And as the years went on, not only did the medium have less influence, but I was becoming jaded by the disconnection within the workplaces,
Mm-hmm.
toxicity of the medium, and I
Mm-hmm.
was just becoming disengaged with the entertainment industry in general. I felt that I was always a very deep thinker, and when you're a radio broadcaster, you're really encouraged to speak to the masses. So I
Mm-hmm.
had to take off a lot of the edges and the things that make me me to be
Mm-hmm.
more um, appeasable to a mass audience. And that got really tiring as I entered my 30s. I think
Mm-hmm.
the media, traditional media, is and influencing too, is really a person in their 20s game. And I could just see that if I didn't make a change, I'd start to burn out. At the same time as that was happening, my mum was suffering from and is suffering from a very rare degenerative disease that was breaking down her cognitive ability to connect with other people and herself.
Mm-hmm.
And everywhere I looked, connection was coming up as something that was decreasing and lacking. And this is 2017, 2018. This is far before anyone talked about the loneliness epidemic. And I realized, like, I have to talk about this. This is important.
You are doing this important work, but I still feel like um, maybe there's a lot more to be done in this arena in terms of just acknowledging that this issue exists. And in some ways, I think it's also a little bit of a paradox because if you think about our modern lives, I think people have never been busier, people have never been more connected in terms of the number of options that there are. So if you could maybe talk a little bit to that about how loneliness is in some ways the bane of the modern world.
Solving loneliness is about quality of connection, not quantity.
Hmm.
So you can absolutely be surrounded by lots of people. You can have, like me, hundreds of thousands of followers on social media in a community. But because I know all the facts and the science, my number one priority is not scrolling my day away.
Hmm.
Those platforms to me are a business tool. My
Hmm.
number one priority is my mother and my real friends in real life.
Right. How does loneliness manifest in modern life, do you think? I, off the top of my head, have seen social media addiction, and I don't think that people realize that one could be almost thirsting for some sort of connection, and that's why you're spending so much time on social media. But to you, what are the different manifestations of loneliness?
Social anxiety, not wanting to go out and connect with people or feeling very nervous about that, or having outbursts in the workplace. So when we are lonely, we experience a fight or flight response. And this fight or flight response is like stress. It goes back to our early days as human beings in tribes, where
Mm.
we perceived our safety and our ability to thrive based on mutual care with other people in that tribe. So it was our worst fear to be separated from our connections because we
Mm-hmm.
would not have survived very long. So that's baked into our DNA. And so to this day, when we are perceiving that we're alone, we still get this fight or flight response. And that's really important here. The definition of loneliness, it
Mm.
is the gap between the kind and amount of connection you want and the kind and amount of connection you need. So if you look at India, for example, you look at Singapore where I live, as
Mm-hmm.
Asians, you'd be interested to actually know that the World Health Organization's latest report points to the fact that people in collectivist cultures, like Singaporeans, like Indians,
Mhm.
you will experience higher levels of loneliness in collectivist cultures because of obligation for social norms and
Right.
possibly surrounded by family and friends, particularly in the Indian family. You know, I'm part Indian, so
Mm.
in the Indian family system, in which you are obligated to all the uncles, all the aunties, but you're
Yeah.
not necessarily feeling safe and connected with these people. Maybe there's gossiping. Maybe
Mm.
there is pressure. Maybe
Mhm.
there is not fully being seen. And as a half Chinese person, I see this a lot. I am to my elders, I am not seen as an adult. I'm seen
Mm.
as the subject of these elders, not necessarily as a human, but as their niece and through the lens of those social norms. So fascinatingly, that is another reaffirmation that it is about quality, not quantity. Collectivist
Mm.
cultures
Mhm.
versus individualistic cultures like we see in Europe, where it is more acceptable to talk about loneliness,
Mhm.
they actually register in self reported studies less feelings of loneliness than we do.
Right. I think one of the bits that you've mentioned in your book, also, and you just referred to that even earlier, is self connection and just spending time with the self, realizing that there could be patterns from our childhood which are preventing real connection. So, if you could maybe talk a little bit about that, what really could help with self connection? What are some of the mistakes that people are making in this area?
Yeah, so I posit through lived experience and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
therapy that trauma actually derails our relationship with ourselves. So we're all born into this world advocating for our needs. When we're a child, we dance when we want to have fun, we cry when we're sad. Those responses are not mediated by anything. But as we go through life and the world imprints on us,
Mm-hmm.
different experiences, different traumas, um, we start to build protective behaviors. We start to build maladaptive behaviors to avoid being hurt, to avoid these sort of traumas from happening again. So, in other words, we love as we were loved. So, if you experienced, for example, a father who was either physically or emotionally absent, that will shape how you as a woman grow up and connect with your love interests. You know, I had a mother who, God bless her, and I love her dearly. You know, she is to this day still a roller coaster.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that roller coaster, my nervous system, my body, and my psyche as a child got attached to having high levels of dopamine when I received love, but then crashing lows when I received criticism.
Mm-hmm.
And that also affected my self esteem. So, as a woman, you have low self esteem, and it affects your boundaries in relationships. As a woman, if you have a parent that is a roller coaster, you are not used to normal love when you go out and
Mm.
date.
Mm-hmm.
You are not used to that wholesome, kind guy who shows up with consistency. You are
Mm-hmm.
attracted to the dynamic of your family home in which your nervous system got locked into. So, this is just very simple, and I'm really oversimplifying this concept of, you know, we love as we were loved, but there's a lot out there if you're curious. And I would encourage anybody watching. Maybe you don't have the money for therapy, or maybe you don't have the time for therapy. There are so many books
Mm-hmm.
and there are so many courses and resources out there, even for free online videos on YouTube, where you can go and just start to look at yourself
Mm.
and see if anything you're hearing rings a bell or that you've noticed about your behavior. But I will say, Ritu, the problem is we're preaching to the converted. I think a lot of people who are asleep, and I was there, so no judgment, right? My early
Mm-hmm.
20s, I was chasing validation from my mother, and I was doing things that were just in programmed into me. And I didn't want to be still.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to look at myself because I knew it would be so, so painful. And it
Mm-hmm.
took my mother to have a devastating stroke for the world, my world to stop spinning, for me to really look at myself. And it was horrifying. I understand why people run from themselves.
Mm.
And if you, I truly believe if you want the life you've always dreamed of, and I know because I now live the life I've always dreamed of, there's no getting away around that. You can
Mm.
try and bypass it, but it will still rob you of your happiness. It will
Mm.
still rear its head. There's no way
Right.
around it. I
Right. So, like you said, people can sort of maybe seek out resources, but what are your suggestions on just slowing down? Because, like you said, in this attempt to run away from yourself, maybe people run through life at breakneck speeds just so that they can avoid thinking about this. So yeah, do you have any recommendations around that?
It's really interesting. I think it depends of phase of life. Like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of my girlfriends are now having their second children. When my friends had their first child and the child was young, they had a lot of time. The
Mm.
second child comes along, the oldest child now has extracurriculars. There is no time. There's no time to
Yeah.
even take my call as a friend, which has led
Right.
me now to having to expand my friendships to either people whose children have already grown up or to people who are single because they
Mm-hmm.
just don't have that time. So
Mm-hmm.
they don't even have time for their good friends. They're not going to have time even for themselves. So I think it's a phase of life thing. I
Mm.
think, unfortunately, the human condition is we seek out time to find ourselves when
Mm.
we have been through something so crushingly painful
Yeah.
and so uncomfortable that we go, I need to fix this. That is what is so sad about the human condition. But watching my dad die when I was 19 and then
Mm.
mum again being sick when I was 29, it happened a lot younger for me. Some of my friends
Mm.
now going to 40s and 50s, not only do they have a household to run, they also have aging parents to deal with.
Mm.
So I think you have to be so dysregulated and so uncomfortable that you wake up with that rock bottom to know that how you're running your life
Mm.
is not working to make
Mm.
that change. And I could sit here and say, yes, go and meditate and take a walk for 15 minutes and all of that. But if I really observe human behavior, and I observe human behavior a lot all
Mm-hmm.
over the world when I travel for work, the truth is, I don't think humans run to it unless they feel extreme pain and discomfort.
Yeah. Yeah. There is so much that is wrong with one's life. You can talk about trauma, etc. But then equally, there are things that sometimes we end up, messing up. In terms of connection, can you maybe talk about the three, four top things that we tend to mess up on, which prevents us from connecting in our daily lives, missed opportunities?
Yeah, I think a really easy one is when you're on your commute and running around, take off your noise cancelling headphones. I really think that that is a missed opportunity to make what I call micro connections. So make eye
Mm-hmm.
contact and smile and laugh with people. They don't have to become your best friends, but micro connections are a fantastic gateway into deeper connection. A micro connection is like what you might see as a very banal, everyday, hello, how are you with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Um, your barista at the Starbucks, for example, you might not think that that is anything valuable, but we could see from the pandemic how losing that does reduce your, your quota of social interaction. And for
Mm-hmm.
very lonely and chronically lonely people, sometimes micro connections is all they have. They don't
Mm-hmm.
have friends.
Mm-hmm.
So a smile to them, a hello to them, taking out your own headphones so you notice them goes a
Mm.
hugely, hugely long way.
Yeah.
Um, Missed opportunities. I also think eye contact is a big thing I see in the younger generations, the aversion to eye contact.
Mm-hmm.
And with that eye contact, the kind of eye contact you give, there's something called the Duchenne smile,
Mm-hmm.
which is the smile that we perceive from other humans as truly sincere. And that's where the
Mm-hmm.
corners of our eyes crinkle up.
Yeah.
Now, when we meet someone and we want them to become our friend, warmth and competence is the measure that we use. And so if we perceive that someone is warm, that's half the battle. So
Right.
when you avert eye contact or don't make eye contact, and if you do make eye contact, you're not smiling with those eyes, you're
Mm-hmm.
losing a chance to make a potential in real life friend. And
Right.
remembering that we don't have any science to show that we get the same amount of feel good chemicals from online communication as we do from in person connection.
Mm-hmm.
So we need in real life, we need in person. And that
Right.
would be my third thing, right? Like everyone, we are all incredibly, incredibly busy. We live
Mm-hmm.
in a world where timescales are now condensed. Um, and putting friendship first is a really important thing. Putting connection first is a really important thing. And whether that means putting it in your calendar to remind you to reach out to someone, Life
Yeah.
is about showing up. Life is not about what we see through here, right? Life
Yeah.
is actually the moments and memories. And a good
Mm-hmm.
life is comprised of moments of connection.
Mm-hmm.
So, absolutely putting connection at the center of your life will improve your health, but also extend your lifespan.
Right. Yeah, I think that's one thing that people don't necessarily realize as to how your quality of life gets impacted with the lack of the right kind of connection, like you're talking about. So maybe if you could talk a little bit about that as well.
Well, firstly, I mean, let's talk about the statistics. The biggest determinant of your lifelong happiness is the partner you choose,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you're a woman watching this, please don't settle. If you're a guy watching this, please don't settle. It is the determinant of your lifelong happiness. Um, I think also being around connection, which is reciprocal, where you feel valued, um, where you can have deep conversations. So another type of connection is intimate connection. And these are
Mm-hmm.
the five closest people to you that you can truly be yourself, warts and all, and they love you, they're there for you. And it's not necessarily with a partnership that you get this. People can be married and feel very alone in their marriage.
Yeah.
Now, if you are in that position and you don't have an intimate connection outside of your marriage, someone you could confide in, that is an incredibly inauthentic and lonely life. It's like you're
Mm-hmm.
masquerading, you are an avatar in your own life.
Mm-hmm.
So, living that level of deep, truthful connection where you can be honest with yourself and other people, and sometimes other people help us to be honest with ourselves too,
Yeah.
right? You get things from those deep conversations that trigger something or challenge something in you. So, depth of connection is absolutely imperative. If you don't have those five, you cannot soothe your loneliness.
Right. And what are some other forms of relationships? You spoke about micro connections, you spoke about intimate connections. What are the other kinds that one needs?
Yeah, the other three that have come up in my research are we did micro connections, we did intimate connections, we have relational connections. Now,
Mm-hmm.
this in the Asian family system is the uncles, the aunties, grandma, grandpa, their
Mm-hmm.
kin. You don't have to
Mm-hmm.
be deep and meaningful with them, but they make you feel connected to a social fabric. And
Mm-hmm.
indeed, growing up when we would be kids and we would have these massive family gatherings with all the cousins and the aunties, I truly loved it. You know, when we were younger, it wasn't so much the gossiping. It was more like you're a
Mm-hmm.
kid and it's cute, and I loved that, and I felt
Mm-hmm.
very connected to an identity bigger than me. So that's what that
Mm-hmm.
points to.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also have collective connection. These are people who share a common thread of interest with you, but they're not your best buddies. You can find this often in your hobby groups, like your book
Mm-hmm.
clubs or your religious groups that you might be part of, or your temple groups, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And these are very important too. They make us feel seen. They make us feel like we're not crazy if we have a really interesting hobby
Mm-hmm.
that no one else understands. Actually, I'm really into beauty, like makeup and
Mm-hmm.
skincare. And I
Mm-hmm.
actually don't have one girlfriend at the moment that's interested in that. So I might have to find someone else I can geek out with on that. I've lost
Right.
that since leaving the media industry. There's no one else that's
Mm-hmm.
interested. So
Mm-hmm.
thank you, Ritu. See, this is how human connection jogs our memory.
Right. Right. So I think this one, like you're saying, is in some ways the most seminal one. So we've spoken about it a little bit, but I feel like maybe we ought to go in a little deeper with it. And let's talk about somebody who's our age. I am 38, you're 42. It can be super busy. Like you said, some of us might have young kids. Or what are some ways that do something about it?
If you are dissatisfied with your life in any
Mm-hmm.
segment, that means there is a lack of self connection there. I truly believe that. Because if you
Mm-hmm.
have the time to really think and inquire, you would realize that everything would be improved by self connection. So I've
Mm-hmm.
written my second book on self connection, and I've released that book onto the internet on my Substack. So if you go to simoneheng.substack.com,
Mm-hmm.
every single week for the 52 weeks of 2026, I'm putting 1,000 words from that book to explain the concept of self connection, to share techniques on how to strengthen it.
Mm-hmm.
I think most people live their life in automation and then wake
Mm-hmm.
up one day and wonder why their life does not look the way that they wanted it to.
Yeah.
It takes bravery to be critical of yourself and to
Mm-hmm.
investigate what's going on. So it's not just a matter of time and busyness, it's a
Mm-hmm.
matter of courage.
Right.
So I define self-connection as the awareness of one's own experience in any given moment.
Mm-hmm.
If you've ever asked the question, why am I like this? Why did I feel that way when that such and such thing happened or such and such thing was said to me? These are self connection questions. This is the beginning of
Mm-hmm.
the inquiry, and your job is to find out the answer. And the
Yeah.
answer may be, way deeper than you think, might be informed of a trauma that happened so historically deep inside you that you might not even be aware. But
Yeah.
it's important that you ask that question.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's one of the key bits. It's actually one of the reasons I've started this podcast, is to help people sort of take a breath, take a beat, stop from the running, and
Yeah,
actually ask the important questions, because life will just pass you by.
life will
And
pass you by, and
yeah.
it informs everything that you do. If you don't know you're lonely, right? It's a simple self connection question that most people get wrong because they don't
Mm,
understand the symptoms of loneliness.
mm-hmm,
You will not know that you then choose to marry someone who you deep down might have a hint that you're settling for, but you
mm-hmm,
wouldn't want to admit that to yourself. But
mm,
5 years into your marriage, you wake up and you go, oh my goodness, like, what have I done? Why did I choose this person? And it
yeah.
all goes back to that moment 5 or 6 years earlier where you
Yeah.
felt lonely. And so
Yeah.
you took the lowest hanging fruit option. I'm telling
Yeah.
you, it's rarefied air to live in a space of courage, to not do what everyone else does, but you just can't because you have that connection with yourself. You can't ignore the voice anymore. The muscle gets so strong that it's a direct from the intuition to the brain, and there's no getting rid of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I just
And
wish
but do
more
you
and
want to
more
live like
people.
that? This is the question. Once you
Mm-hmm,
know, there's no going back and unknowing, and then you're
mm-hmm,
called to make harder, more friction filled, sometimes harder decisions and harder pathways
yeah.
than what it would be to be asleep and just living in that automation. Yes, your
Yeah.
life doesn't look like your dream, but your life also doesn't look bad to you either because
Mm,
you have not accepted the invitation that it could be better.
yeah.
Um, so this is what I spend my time thinking about, and it's true. I don't think many people like have that time, but I wish they did.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's the same for me. I mean, I look at people, and like you're saying, it's just everyone is just busy running, uh, and I don't think too many people sort of stop and wonder if the direction they're running in is at all the direction they want to go in. It just seems like everybody else is doing that, and
Yes,
so
the amount of people
something.
who come up to me, Ritu, like I got a message from someone who I used to know on LinkedIn. She was just saying, I avoid your content because I feel it makes me feel bad about what I haven't achieved. And I wrote back and I said, you would never want to go through what I went through to achieve this. Let me tell
Mm,
you, you want to see your dad die? I don't think so. You want
mm,
to change your mother's diaper? I don't think so. And you want to be single and 19 and 29 years old when you do that? Like,
mm,
I don't think so. You want to clean the hoarding in your parents' house on your own at 30? I don't think so. So we
mm,
are running by what we see. We don't
mm.
interrogate why we perceive an image as successful or not
Yeah.
successful. And we do not ask, what is the sacrifice I would have to give for that? These are all self connection questions.
This bit in your book really spoke to me. This incident that you describe while you were at Dubai doing your radio gig, where you were feeling really overwhelmed. I think it was something about your mom, and then you had to go online. Talk a little bit about that and how you really pulled yourself out of that difficult time and stood up for
Yeah, I
yourself.
had to go on air. I mean, and anyone here who's a performer of any nature knows that you have to show up. Like even
Mm-hmm,
today, I'm sick. I'm here, Ritu. We've had this
mm-hmm,
plan for months. I'm here,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
and you know that sometimes you're not going to be in the optimal state. Like today, my nose is running. It's not going to be optimal, but I'm here.
mm-hmm,
And radio is like that because you're on air 5 days a week. So the probability of you having to be on air at a bad time for you is very high.
mm-hmm,
Um, and so what I know is that our state, and this happens to do a bit to do with self connection too, but
Mhm.
our state determines our response, right?
Mhm.
And we can trick our state from the outside in. So, one thing I learned very early was that if I felt low energy, if I moved my body, I could increase energy just for the radio show.
Mhm.
Um, and what I did was I had to smile. You're trained to smile when you're in lifestyle TV or radio, right? Not so much for
Mhm.
podcasts. I can be
Mhm.
more me with you. It's long form,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
you keep your job based on 30 seconds to a minute of speaking over a song. Like you have to perform or you lose your job.
Yeah.
And you have to make other people feel joyful.
Mhm.
So I sucked up my tears and I put a smile on my face. And interestingly, after I finished what I had to do, I actually felt better um, about about the whole day, even though I
Mhm.
had entered that situation feeling really traumatized, really fight or flight about a family situation. So actually smiling tricked me into a feeling of high levels of happiness.
Could you talk a little bit about maybe Amy Cuddy's power poses? Because it sounds quite magical, honestly, listening to this, that you could actually smile your way into feeling better. And sometimes, like you're saying, you really have to show up for yourself. There's no one else to help at that moment. So, how could one go about doing that?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not really magical. It's all based on science, biochemistry.
Mm-hmm.
Amy Cuddy's power poses are taken from positions that congenitally blind athletes um, performed when they were victorious. So they
Mm-hmm.
threw their hands in the air like this. They felt really
Mm-hmm.
good about themselves. And they were blind. So they have never actually seen anyone else perform this. So therefore,
Mm-hmm.
these are poses that human beings do by default when we feel
Mm-hmm.
powerful. Her study looked into whether replicating these poses in our day to day lives release some sort of biochemistry that equates to feelings of powerfulness.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do when I'm jet lagged and I have to go on stage in America, for example, to do a speech for 45 minutes, is I do the power poses because I know that they're making me feel like I already have done the challenge well. But what they also do is if you have a high stakes challenge where you're in fight or flight, so that
Mm-hmm.
means your body is full of cortisol, adrenaline, norepinephrine, and these things can diminish your public speaking engagement, for example. The power poses help you to retain those good feelings, those good performance hormones like testosterone, adrenaline.
Mm-hmm.
You need them, but you don't need them to the point where your palms are sweaty, you're shaking, and you can't talk. So it
Mm-hmm.
just helps to balance them out a bit. And yeah, studies showed that they worked by releasing some of those chemicals, and that reaction happened. So I use them all the time. They're great.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a neat little cheat sheet that people should
Yeah,
reference whenever they need to go into meetings or just put their best foot forward.
yeah. If people go into my, and maybe I can send you the link later, Ritu. But if you go into my
Yeah.
Instagram bio and you click on freebies, there
Mm-hmm.
is a PDF with 8 ways to fight stage fright, and you can download that free ebook. And in there, we'll explain more about the power poses, but other things you can do to get your body on your side to perform well in high stakes situations.
No, that sounds cool. I'll put it in the show notes for
Thank you.
sure. And tell me this. Now we're talking obviously about helping ourselves, but equally there are things that we need to do for others as well. And one place I think myself included, we really struggle is in offering a real, sincere, heartfelt apology. Why is it so hard for people to apologize? I have found this many times when I'm arguing with my husband, for example, that I'm just agitated and I want the conversation to end. So I might say a sorry just to sort of end that conversation. It's not really a sorry. So, what do you think is missing? How do you think we can make it easier for ourselves to offer a sincere apology?
Um, I think again, firstly, self connection. You know when you've done. I just gave an apology the other day to a friend of mine. I know I behaved in a way that was not the highest version of me, and
Mm-hmm.
then when you look at that, you feel this thing called shame.
Mhm.
Shame, if you have a connection with yourself, you know what that feels like. Shame and guilt, you'll
Mhm.
feel a pain of it. That's a pretty good pointer to the fact that you should apologize. But I think if we look at why we find it so difficult, for Asians, it's very cultural. For
Mhm.
East Asians, at least, this idea of showing face is very strong, that by
Mm.
apologizing, you concede guilt. But sometimes you're not apologizing because you're guilty and you did something wrong. You're apologizing because it was the right thing to do. You behaved in a way that was beneath you, and you
Mhm.
also could have or maybe hurt someone's feelings,
Mhm.
right? Doesn't have to be that you did something wrong. What I wouldn't want to do, and I used to do this a lot when I was in media because I had very low self esteem, was apologize for being me.
Mm.
And you shouldn't do that. But
Mm.
you should apologize if you felt you've done something that, you know, reduces you.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me this other thing that you've also mentioned in your book, the loving kindness meditation. What is that about?
Yeah, so loving kindness meditation has been around for years and years and years in Eastern faiths.
Mhm.
Um, and loving kindness meditation, you can download it for free off any like Spotify, YouTube, and it starts with directing love and kindness to yourself,
Mhm.
then to someone you're really close to, then someone you're not so close to, then someone you have some beef with, and then finally directing love and kindness to the whole universe because we are, of course, all one. And studies show the work of Dr. Barbara D. Fredrickson that when we practice loving kindness meditation, the person giving it feels better. It is a heart expander. You are sending love and kindness to someone you might have an issue with, and it softens and it like flexes the compassion muscle. It's never failed me. Honestly, it's never failed me.
Wow.
Highly
That
recommended.
Yeah, that sounds really good. I think this progression especially makes a lot of sense, saying that sometimes we need to start with being kind to ourselves and
Yeah.
then we sort of move outwards. So that really sounds
And
like
just on
something.
that,
Hmm.
Ritu, like I look back at my life, the times in my life where I was the harshest on other people was because I held myself to such a level of harshness.
Yeah.
And that's a really sad internal world to live in,
Yeah.
you know? And as my compassion for other people increased, so did the compassion I had for myself. So we are one, they are interlocked. You are cruel to yourself, you are going to be cruel to other people. And we have all
Yeah.
met people like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's try and avoid.
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, I think I've seen couples maybe who have exacting standards for each other, and I can almost intuit that that's probably because you put yourself up to that exacting standard. So you're absolutely right there. And there's just so much work that is needed to even acknowledge that this is going on and then taking the first step in sort of correcting
Yes,
that.
connection is hard.
Yeah.
Takes patience and therapy and time with yourself to know yourself before you jump into things. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
The other thing that you've mentioned, which is kind of, I guess, similar to the loving kindness meditation, is how you talk about service and how service makes you feel good. In some ways, I guess it may not be overtly intuitive when you think about it the first time, but if you talk about it, people will get what I mean.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, there's a reason why every great faith in the history of our world has said, be kind to others, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, when we were living in those tribes as early Homo sapiens, um, the people that were least likely to get kicked out of the tribe, which would mean certain death, right,
Mm-hmm.
were the people that positively impacted the tribe the most. So the tribal chief, the cook, the medicine woman, the best hunter, all
Mm-hmm.
of these people were helping that tribe survive. So
Mm-hmm.
they were indispensable. So no one would kick them out. So when you do things that are good for your community beyond yourself, you positively impact them, you get a hit of social bonding, feel good hormones, dopamine, oxytocin. And guess
Mm-hmm.
what? The person receiving the aid gets a hit of those as well because they feel they're not forgotten by the tribe and going to be cast out. And often when we're vulnerable and we need help, we really do need to be seen and helped by someone. And so
Yeah.
I think both of those things people don't realize. That's why it feels so good when you do an act of kindness for someone else and when you
Yeah.
receive an act of kindness. And so I would say, how can everybody watching this make a note in their calendar if it has been 6 months or more since you did an act of kindness for someone beyond your family? How could you mark something in your diary to be able to,
Yeah.
or return repeating calendar invite to help the old lady with her shopping across the street,
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah. 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 It doesn't have to be big because, again, when you think about, you talk about stuff like this, people immediately think, oh my God, that just sounds like another big thing to do. But it doesn't have to be, right? It can be a small little thing that you do, like you're saying, help a neighbor, maybe.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Just something small.
Yeah, yeah. What's your dream for the world, Simone? You're working in this space, which is obviously very, very important. Yeah, what is your dream for the world?
I don't know. I think it's changed a lot in the last couple of years. I
Mm-hmm.
think I used to be very optimistic about everything, about the personal development industry, about the role of my work within that, about the ability of governments to govern. And I'm just going to be honest with you, Rita, I'm not feeling very, like, I don't feel as enthused as I used to.
Mm,
But my dream for the world would be that we could work together and come together and connect with each other in a
mm,
deeply human way instead
yeah,
of profiting off fear and factions. That would be
yeah.
my dream.
That's a lovely dream. Thanks so much, Simone. This has been so
You're
good.
so
Thanks so much for tuning in. I look forward to your comments and feedback. Before you go, can I ask for a favor? If you like the show, would you consider subscribing? It's an easy way to support us, and we promise to keep doing what we're doing and try and do even better. Thank you.